Right, so in this video, I'm going to be going over the barbell back squat. This is my client right here, Braden, and he is a baseball player currently. And we are doing the barbell back squat because it is a fantastic bilateral movement for overall general strength, hypertrophy, and for power, depending on what you are going for. Now, the barbell back squat is something that the prime movers are the quadriceps, the glutes, and the hamstrings, mostly dependent on how far your width of your stances, which I'll be going over shortly. The stabilizers for the barbell back squat are going to be your erectors, which are right in your lower back. You've got all of your core muscles right over here as well that are going to act as stabilizers. Your calves also are going to act as stabilizers. Now, Braden right here is going to show the two different types of barbell back squats there are. There's a high bar back squat and there's a low bar back squat. Braden, if you can get into the high bar back squat variation. Now, if you see it right over here, it is laying right on top of his traps, right towards the top of his shoulders. Now, the high bar barbell back squat is going to be more of a quadricep dominant back squat. Now, the low bar variation is going to be, he slides down just a little bit or as far down as he can comfortably. And that is going to be resting more towards his rear delts. The low bar back squat is going to have more of a glute, hamstring, and lower back dominance in comparison to the high bar, again, where we're focusing more on our quadriceps. Now, for this video, while we're going over the back squat, we're going to be using the high bar variation. You can step right up. So, before going over the actual barbell back squat itself, I want to go over the unrack, because the unrack is something that a lot of people do poorly, and it is something that it could be easily fixed and make your squat a lot better. First off, the barbell should be, you can come right out real quick. Nope, not with the bar. Just come right out. And then just look towards the video right over here. So, on this side. Thank you. So, the barbell should never be placed too high to the point where you need to get onto your toes when you are unracking or re-racking. That is an unsafe position to be in and is not something that we want. We want to make sure that you are at least somewhere by your chest, clavicle right over here, so you can dip underneath it just slightly so you've got enough space to get over these clips. Now, you can get right back in. What I want you to do is you're going to step right underneath the barbell. As you get underneath it, you're going to bring your hands as close as possible to your body while still being comfortable, and you're going to bring your feet right next to each other. I see a lot of people doing the split stance when they're unracking. That's not terrible, but it's really not optimal. I would most likely prefer you to be in this position right here. Now, you're going to unrack the bar. Stand up in a tall position. Now, another thing that I see a lot of people doing when they're walking out is they take a lot of they look like a baby deer, and they kind of just do a bunch of steps. Not only is that not energy efficient, but again, it's also a way for you to easily get injured. So what I look for are deliberate and consistent steps. Every time you are unracking and re-racking, the steps should be the exact same thing. If you take 3 steps out the first time, you should be taking 3 steps out every single time. First step with that same foot, and they should always look the same, no matter if you're using 20% of your max or 100% of your 1 rep max. Now, you can bring that bar right back down. And then come right back up, and then show the walkout. Yep. Now, before I want to see Braden squat, there are a couple things that I do want to see. 1, I'm looking for his foot placement. I don't care really how far out or how narrow your feet are, but I care about you being in a comfortable position, so that is going to be very person by person dependent. Where your toes are pointing. Your toes can point out right straight in front of you, or they could point out to the side. Again, that is going to be person by person dependent, but what I want you to do is I want to make sure that your knees are staying in line with your toes the entire time you are squatting. There's going to be a couple different instances about that I'm going to talk about later where that might not always be the case. Second thing, a lot of people always talk about you want to have all of your weight in your heels. Again, that's something I'll be going over a little bit later. What I want to look for is a tripod foot. Now, in a tripod foot, you're going to have even pressure right on your big toe, your pinky toe, and your heel, creating, again, that tripod. That is going to allow you for better force generation coming out of the hole in the squat. Now, last thing I want to focus on is that he is pulling down on the bar as hard as he possibly can, If that causes a little bit of pain, which sometimes it can, this isn't a huge thing, but it is an easy way for you to leak energy out towards the top when you're coming up. So that is the setup of the position I want to be in. Oh, and finally, I want to make sure that his hips are right in line with his torso. A lot of people, again, this is specific to low bar, they're going to hinge out, and this is going to be their starting position right here. I don't want that. That's an easy way for you, as you're coming up, if you end in this position, to really eliminate any kind of glute work that you're getting, and also put a little extra strain on your lower back, which we most likely don't want. So, Braden is starting with a good position, tripod foot. He's got his feet in a good stance that he's used to. Glutes right in line with his torso, and he's pulling down on that bar. Now, as he gets into the eccentric portion, the way down, he is going to unlock his hips and unlock his knees and try to glide down. Something that I'm looking for with this is that the bar path, if you're looking right from the side, is as vertical as possible. The further out it goes either way, one, makes it easier for you to miss the lift, either just fail it completely if you're going for heavier weights, or two, it's not going to allow us to maximally focus on the muscle groups that really. Good. Now you can come right back up. You can bring the bar in because I know you've been holding that for a while. Thank you. So, things I am looking for in the eccentric position, if you can come right out here, just so I can demonstrate that a little bit better. As he is coming down, I want to make sure, again, you can come down, that his knees are tracking in line with wherever his toes are pointing. I don't want to see, if you can cave in, something like that on the way down. Now, if you were coming up, which we'll talk about in a second, and they come in and then slide right out, that's really no big deal. But I'm looking for his knees to be right in line with his toes. I'm looking for his chest to be as upright as possible because, again, we are focusing on our quadriceps as a primary mover for this high bar position. The more upright his chest can be, the more upright his torso is, the more quadricep work we're going to get. Now you can come right back up. Finally, I'm looking for him to get as deep as possible. The deeper you can go is going to be better for that range of motion. The better range of motion that you have, the stronger you're going to be throughout that entire lift, especially for athletes. Again, we want you to be strong in a full range of motion. There might be times where we don't go that deep, but specifically if we're going for strength or hypertrophy, we want you to go as deep as possible. So get right underneath the bar. Now I'm going to have you get right down to the bottom position and just hold it right there for a couple seconds. So if I was having him do an isometric hold, I would have him hold right at the bottom, or this could be the amortization phase in between the eccentric and the isometric. As he is on his way up, again, I want him to focus on pulling down on that bar as hard as he can. I want him to focus on staying as upright as he can with his torso. And you're going to drive aggressively right through that tripod foot, right through the middle of your foot as you are coming up. You can come up. All right. Now, give me 10 reps. I think that's what I'm supposed to do for the video. Good. Now try to stay a little more upright. Good. He's keeping his knees out right in line with his toes. He's taking a deep breath in on the way down. I didn't really talk about bracing in this video, but he's taking a great breath right in, and he's not breathing out till he gets to the top. He's keeping a neutral position with his spine. He's not rounding over, hinging over, doing any kind of good morning barbell squats. Now you can come right back in. That is the high bar barbell back squat. Now there are a couple variations that I would do depending on how strong you are, depending on how competent you are with squatting patterns. So the first thing that I'm always going to have somebody do before I get them into a barbell back squat is always going to be a goblet squat. Goblet squats are lighter. It's going to be easier to do. Again, less weight. And I can really focus on the mechanics of the squat pattern itself without having to worry about any kind of injury risk. So the goblet squat right here is what I would always have somebody start off with before I would start them into a back squat. So demonstrate a goblet squat. By having the weight right in front of you, you can keep yourself in a more upright position. And again, you can just drop the weight right in front, right out if something is to happen. It's a lighter load, so we don't need to worry about you really being perfect with the lift. Give me one more rep. Awesome. And you can put that weight down. Now, after somebody has mastered the goblet squat, if our main goal is the back squat, I'm probably going to have them start with a front squat. So just demonstrate a front squat real quick. Again, this would be the second movement that I would have him do after he has demonstrated mastery of the goblet squat. The weight is still in front of him. It's right in line. It's coming straight down. Again, because the weight is in front and not on your back, it is going to have to keep you in a more upright position. Again, teaching you the better positions of a high bar back squat. Thank you, Braden. Now, and you can just leave that down because I'm just going to go over a couple different things with the squat itself. There are a couple other variations that I love to do whenever it comes to bilateral lifting. I really love belt squats and safety bar squats, especially if you're working with an athlete with an upper body injury. That way we don't need to eliminate lower body work altogether, especially hard lower body work. You can still work around those injuries. So the belt squat, you wrap right around here and the weight comes right down. A safety bar squat, you've got the handles coming right down with the pads, and it just puts a little bit less pressure on your shoulders. Finally, I want to go over a couple of fallacies when it comes to barbell back squatting, which grind my gears. So, first off is what I was talking about before, and this was really made prominent due to Westside Barbell, Mark Ripto, and the 80s and 90s when it comes to lifting. A lot of people would talk about sitting back into your heels when you're squatting and making sure that you have vertical shins. I'll be going over that with my next one. But again, as I mentioned before, sitting back in your heels when you were squatting is not really the optimal position. If you look at some of the best squatters in the world, they always focus on that tripod foot, which is, again, having that equal pressure on your big toe, pinky toe, and heel, and you should be having that pressure right in the midline of your foot. By allowing yourself to do that, again, you can squat down in as straight a line as possible, and if you put all that weight in your heels, it's going to sit back, and you're not going to have that straight line, that straight bar path that we're looking for. 2, your knees can't cross over your toes. Now, I never want anybody to start off a squat where they're just pushing like this, because this is going to put you in a bad position. That I never want you to do. But as long as you are squatting to your range of motion, to your flexibility, you can push your knees over your toes as far as you can with no injury. What pushing your knees over your toes does, people think it's going to cause shearing force of your knee. No. What your knees over your toes really demonstrates is it demonstrates your ankle mobility. Squatting down deep has been proven to not cause any extra shearing force on your knees and is in fact safe. What is not safe is either lifting with too much weight, too much volume, too much intensity, or poor technique. That is how you're going to hurt your knees, not by squatting to depth with good technique. Now, one last thing I do want to talk about, and this is mostly about female lifters, or mostly happens with female lifters, some smaller lifters as well. Now, I talked about having your knees track over your toes the entire time you were squatting. Now, on the way down, that is true. On the way back up in the beginning of the concentric portion, if your knees start coming in just a little bit and you're able to push them right back out on the way up, is a completely fine movement to do. Are completely fine patterning to do that is not going to cause any extra strain on your knees, again, as long as you are able to push them back out on the way up. If you were to stay in this position the whole time, that, again, is not really an optimal position for you to be back squatting or squatting in general with. And that is the barbell back squat.